Hi, everybody. You are a unique individual who has the power to change people's lives just by being who you are, sharing your wisdom, and sharing your story. Welcome, everybody, to Jen's Pen Live, where we find interesting people who are making the world a better place and ask them to share their story. Today, we're talking to Felecia McCants. She is a financial coach, and we're welcoming her back. We had so much fun with our first interview that we've asked her to come back, and we're going to discuss today. We're going to talk about finances and women and minorities, because there are some special issues that go along with all of those things. Welcome, Felecia.
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me back, Jen. I'm so happy to be back. Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you back. So let's just dive right into it. What are the special issues that are surrounding women and minorities in finance? You can separate them out, or you can bring them together, or however you want to do it.
I think, let's start with just women, and there's specific issues, I think, with minorities, but just women in general, just our attitudes and our beliefs and our behaviors. That's where our behaviors stem from money. So a lot of what I see is that we have these, what I like to call shadow beliefs, right? And so a lot of the women that I work with, they are prospering, but they haven't always been that way, right?
Right.
So it takes some used to getting to the idea. And at the same time, they've also thought that they've had the belief that if I can just make more money, I'll be okay. I can solve my problems. If I can just make more money, I can use what I know, what other people have proven that has already worked, and I'll be fine. But what happens is that you skipped a critical step, right? Because nothing that we do, there's no action that we take without there being some kind of emotion or belief or attitude that inspires it, right?
Right.
And so your shadow beliefs bring in resistance that you might not even know is there. So like as a woman, if your mom never worked and your dad was always the breadwinner, well, now you might feel, uncomfortable wondering, okay, my mom wasn't able to do this, so when is the next shoe gonna drop? And if you don't deal with those shadow beliefs, then the proven strategies and methods actually become more like tactics, because you're just trying stuff to see whether it'll work.
Right. Without backing it up with a belief.
Right.
Okay.
Because you don't have the right foundation. So if you don't have the belief, then you won't even be aware of it. And a lot of times these beliefs that we have, they aren't ours. We kind of talked about that before, how we on things, our intuition, what we saw, what we heard, and we rarely question our beliefs, right?
Right.
Especially the ones that we've had for so long, because they're so familiar to us that we don't think to question them. It's like questioning, your mom. My mom said that all the time. So I'm questioning her. Well, no, maybe it was true for her, or maybe she has a different perspective.
Right.
So, as women, especially, I think our point of view sometimes can be a little different, but it really goes back to just those attitudes and beliefs that you didn't even know you had. And when you start, especially when you start prospering, when your income starts rising, those beliefs tend to come out of the shadows. Really be a hindrance to your growth, to your financial growth, and also your growth as a person and your lifestyle, because you start to live in kind of scarcity.
Yes. I know that for me, just using as an example, like if I were to go to a job and want to negotiate for my salary, I think this is a familiar example. Women are much less likely to negotiate, because there's this just idea that we're not being nice if we ask for more money, or we're not being, we're being too pushy, or whatever the case may be.
Right. We might feel like, well, I don't want them to think I'm being aggressive, or,
right.
I should just be grateful, when in reality, the company is grateful. They should be grateful to have you, because without good employees, companies can't exist. And so, but that's all about, again, perspective and your attitude, right? So, if you're looking at previous accomplishments and you're focusing on, all the jobs you left, whatever went wrong, the things that you don't want to talk about in your interview, then
Right.
that's no good. You're going to project that like that has an energy to it, right?
Right.
But when they're confident, thinking about all the things that you're going to bring to the company, the way the company is going to benefit you, how awesome the job is going to be, well, that has a totally different energy to it, right? And so it's about mindset and also, knowing your worth and not undervaluing yourself, which is something that women especially, we tend to undervalue our contributions. My theory is that we're just so awesome, that people just forget. And so we kind of undervalue ourselves. But you gotta, if no one, you gotta celebrate you, right? Whether it's finances, no matter, you gotta celebrate you. You gotta be your biggest fan. And I know that sounds maybe kind of cliche, but it's true because it's people put all these labels and boxes on you, but they're only looking from their perspective. And so you can't depend on other people. You have to have, again, that foundation. And, that does take bringing some beliefs and attitudes out of the shadows. Because what tends to happen is as you tend to prosper, they start working their way out, right? Because you thought the problem was you needed to make more money. But the problem is that that's not the problem, right? Because it's not how much you make, it's how you consume how much you make and how you feel about spending your income.
Okay.
If you're mad about spending money, why would you want to make more of it?
Right. So that must be something you work pretty hard with women on in your practice.
Absolutely, because they're at this point in their lives where they're starting to gain some traction, they're making more money, and how they've gotten through to this point is telling themselves, if I can just hold on till I can make more money, if I can just hold on, things are getting better, I'm moving in the right direction, and all of a sudden you feel like you're there, you're at that number, that imaginary number that you have in your head that you say, if I can just make X amount of dollars, that will solve all my problems. And then you get there and it doesn't.
Right. The problems are still there with you.
The problems are still there. And even worse than that, you have other people outside looking in, right? So if you can imagine, they've seen your journey. They've seen you looking like you're starting to be prosperous. You're making more money, maybe getting a little bit, and they have one view of what your financial picture should be based on what they see and what they know, right? And so now it's also like grappling with, okay, well, they think I'm rolling in it. They think I'm sitting over here sitting pretty, when the truth is money didn't solve your problems, right? And you're still having some obstacles that you're trying to overcome. And the natural tendency is to go and find what has already worked and try to apply it to your money. But it won't work if you don't have the right foundation. It may work temporarily. I'm living proof. I did it 3 times. Every time I did, I got a little bit better at it. And there was danger in that because then, I could kind of do some little fancy accounting in between to make the numbers make me feel better. Even though I was in the same situation, I felt a little better. Right. But I ended up in a bigger mess. Right? So, you can do that, or you can take the right steps that are going to like set you up for success along the way, right? Because if you see that part right, if you can see past your circumstances and get that part right, then the rest of it gets a little bit easier as you go along.
It's funny, you mentioned a minute ago your consumer habits, your consumption habits. And this is totally on topic, but kind of little off what I thought we'd go with. But I just wanted to make the observation that a lot of times women, it's more expensive to be a woman, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's more expensive. We have more stuff we have to buy.
And that is absolutely true. But what I find is not necessarily what we're spending, it's not necessarily, it's how we're spending the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're spending your money in a way that is valuable to you, that makes your life more enjoyable, and at the same time balancing that with not spending on things that don't put you in the mood that you want to be in, that you really, really don't enjoy. I think we kind of talked about that a little bit last time. We exchange our money for little bits of instant gratification that often doesn't even gratify us anymore. Like, we don't even enjoy it anymore. We've developed a habit, right?
Right.
A habit. And so, part of that is just taking a big look at what you really want for your money. Your money should be, I can't use that word. Your money should be your,
you can use whatever word you want. I'm from Boston.
Not that one. Your money should be like your secretary, right? If you're an executive, you're a professional, you may have an assistant or a receptionist or somebody that's there to assist you in getting done what you want to get done, what you need to get done. That's how your money should be working for you, right? You should be leading your money, telling it, hey, I want you to go and do this, then I need you to do this. But what happens when you don't do that, when you don't have that balance in place, is that your money ends up controlling you. Because now so it made the decision about shopping, but that decision didn't stop there. Now it gets to make the decisions about when you can pay what bills when, or when you can go out and enjoy yourself, or all these other things that in your life, right? So that's control. If you give money control over one area of your life, it tends to kind of take over because it's everywhere. It's in everything.
Yes.
Getting around it.
Yeah.
So, a lot of my clients, like I said, they find out as they start to make more money that, until I deal with this other stuff, this foundational stuff, this, some people may call it woo-woo stuff, because all of it's not, woo-woo, but there's some resistance that you have to take out that you don't even know you have. There are things that you experienced or that you saw, secondhand, and maybe just because of your age, the context may have looked different, but it made an impression,
right?
And you kept it, and you're using that to make your decisions today, when that really probably doesn't have zero relevance to whatever you're going through, or whatever your situation is today. And it's not necessarily hard to uncover that. You just have to have the right tools. You have to have the right methods. Otherwise, you can end up going in a circle. So instead of, figuring out what to take from it, or the good stuff, what's going to help you, maybe you stay focused on the negative sides of it, what didn't go right. We tend to, especially as women, because I was looking today earlier that 85% of women control their household finances, like the day-to-day household finances, right? And so what happens is, if you make a mistake, if you don't have the right perspective, if you don't have the right attitude, if you don't have the right method to look at that situation, then you can just end up beating yourself up and just, once we start train of thought, we know it's hard to stop the train, right? You have one thought.
Yeah.
Oh, you remember the other time you did that, and oh yeah, I forgot that. And man, I did this, and it just starts to snowball.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
We don't want that, because that stops your progress, right?
Right.
So as women, I think we're more sensitive to the emotions, but we're not necessarily aware. We experience it, but we don't necessarily pick up on where it comes from.
Right.
Sometimes like something like really big happen, and you'll have like a really clear memory, and you'll be like, well, where did that come from? It was there all along in the shadows, right?
Right.
It brings it out. So with women who are, especially you're starting to make a better income, you're prospering, that's something that they deal with, but also the perspective outside. And even when we were talking about, culture and minorities, you can kind of find yourself in the trick box, right? Because like you're getting labeled and you have this new identity, but depending on where you're coming from or what your environment is, you could be like the in-between, right? So some of your people could be maybe they haven't gotten there yet. They're still along their journey, and they may look at you and say, well, you've changed.
Mm.
Well, of course, as we grow, life is about desire, I believe, right? We're never going to stop having desires, right? And as you grow and as your income grows, your desire grows. So that's never going to stop. So to other people, it looks like you've changed, but you're really just expanding.
Right.
And so it's the being okay with that. And it's the helping others to understand that, I'm just growing. This is just life. And everybody can do it. That's the thing.
That's the thing.
Everybody can do it.
Yes, everybody can do it. That's what people need to understand.
That's exactly right. Yep.
So let's kind of segue then, because it seems like we're kind of going into naturally, although if I pointed out it's not as natural, into minorities and finances. There are certainly different aspects that some of us are completely unaware of when it comes to that. So if you'd like to educate us and then talk a little bit more about it.
For minorities, and again, one thing I don't like to put people in boxes, right? Because minorities, we can have all different kind of backgrounds, upbringings, but depending on your background, culture plays into it a lot too, right?
Right.
Because there are certain norms that are in different communities. So last we talked about, my mom telling me good credit is better than cash. Right.
I remember that.
Things, you can call them sayings, mantras, whatever. We kind of make them mantras that culturally we grow up with, and we don't realize how they affect us. So when you're around people who may be talking about people who may have grown, their life is expanded, right? And you hear people saying, well, money changed them. Or money is the root of all evil.
Right. We talked a little bit about that. Yeah.
That didn't happen until they got that job. Right. They got that new car, and I just don't know what happened to them. They just different people. When you hear that, that makes an impression on you.
Right.
I mean, it does, and especially when it comes from someone who you respect and admire.
Right.
AKA parents, AKA that favorite uncle, that favorite cousin. Those things we hear, and we don't realize that as we tend to grow up, we factor those things in, whether we know it or not, into our experiences and use them to help us make decisions. So a lot of the work that we do is really looking at, like, what do you believe? Right. And I see a lot of the same themes culturally, and that's one of them is the fear. Okay, so we've talked about people looking in thinking that you got it made, right? So what that causes sometimes is now you become the caretaker. So there's that increased responsibility, and there's the stress of that, and then so now money didn't fix the problem. And so we have bigger problems of our own. And now we have people that we love and adore, and that a lot of them don't mean no harm, that, also are looking to us because we're doing good. And, and they know, and when we talked about, the money being evil, they know that we're good people.
Right.
Right. So, and they look to us, and a lot of the women that they deal with that, like, oh my God, now I'm making, it's not happening for me. Like, I'm making good money, but my bank account does not reflect that. Like, my bank account, when I look at my bank account, I'm not feeling very prosperous,
Right.
They feel like they're still struggling, and it's like, what is the deal? And what happens to some women by the time they get to me is they feel like it's me. It has to be me, right? Because now I had the money and I've spent so long believing that money was the issue. And so it has to be me. And so I think, sometimes as minorities, especially if like you're the first one to really start experiencing that prosperity, that also adds on, some extra baggage of responsibility, of labels, of perception of you. And you have to deal with all of that. And what you don't realize is that affects how you move with your money.
Right.
I've had clients who haven't really taken the time to enjoy their prosperity, right? Because they're so stressed out about the responsibility that it added on. So now instead of looking at as their money as being freeing, as being something wonderful, as being something that gives them a chance to experience a fuller and bigger life, they're looking at it as a weight, as a crutch, right?
Right.
And anything that you don't enjoy, that you don't like, and I'm not talking about just saying, oh yeah, I want money, right? Because we all say that, I want to be rich. But when you get down to your core, if you don't really believe that, your actions will not reflect the fact that you want money.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you make decisions that later you look back and you might say, why did I do that?
I made so many of those.
I did it. Why did I even go down that road, right? You might look at it and just say that. So, it's just being, you have to be aware. There are definitely some different ways of moving, some different things to deal with culturally, and not only just minorities, but even people who maybe came from a background to where, there was poverty primarily, and now that they may experience the same thing where everybody is looking to you. How many celebrities have you heard that? I take care of everyone in my family.
Right.
There's a weight to that. And so you have to figure out how to deal with that. So when you're making financial decisions, you can move towards what you want and not move in fear, right?
Yes.
Is if you don't really want to do it, you're going to resist in some way, right? If you don't want to clean the bathroom, you do it, but maybe it'll be 10 o'clock at night or 12 o'clock at night before you do it, instead of 9 o'clock that morning when you clean the rest of the house, right?
Right.
And you've created, so there's a domino effect, right? Based on that behavior. And all of that starts with your beliefs and all the ones you see and the one you don't.
Right. Yeah. So if you start seeing money as just another bringing more problems rather than bringing solutions, then you're going to kind of avoid making more money.
Absolutely. I have a coach, and it was interesting. One of her mentors is Lisa Nichols, and she was just telling us how Lisa Nichols three times she got up to almost $1 million, 900 and something thousand dollars. Then she would take a break. Why? Because she was scared of making $1 million. And we all say, I want to make $1 million. I want to make $1 million.
Yeah.
But how interesting.
That threshold. Yeah.
That was her number. Like, if I make $1 million, I'm going to be changed. It's going to change me. People are going to look at me differently. My life is going to be like, that was her number. And everyone's number is different. For some people, it might be $50,000. For some people, it might be $1 million. For some people, it might be $3 million.
Right.
Whatever that number is. But, as you go along, it's really interesting to see the connections to your past experiences, secondhand or firsthand, and how those things turned into beliefs that maybe you didn't even know you had, that then affect how you move with your money, which then are going to determine what your results are.
So how can people, I know we spoke briefly about this last time too, but like if people got these shadow beliefs and they start seeing money, making money as actually contributing to the problems, what can they do to start shifting their mindset and becoming more aware, even because they're shadow, right? They're shadow problems. Like, how can people become more aware of these
That's the
beliefs?
first thing is becoming aware. And so, and like I said, you can always find, we have a specific system and method that we do it that helps you to kind of quickly look at those beliefs. And really what's interesting is the way we do it allows our clients to think about, like, they see it immediately. Oh, that's why I do X, because of that. Because one of the things we do is we look at those experiences, those patterns that the people around you had that you probably picked up on that you don't realize you picked up on. Then there's another part of that is then, okay, so those are your, what I call secondhand outer experiences. But then there are your own experiences, right? We all have our personal experiences with money. And so it's looking at those in a different way. What I find with my clients is that they are normally, when they tell me about their past experiences, they tell me everything that they did wrong. If they thought that they did anything wrong, they're going to tell me about it. Well, then it's like, well, great. But I know there's something in there that you did right. There's something in there that you learned. There's something in there that helped you. There's something in there. And so it's bringing that out and saying, okay, well, yeah, I went through that, but I learned this. So
Yes.
Those experiences and kind of analyze how they're going to help you in your journey, because you can't do anything about your past experiences, right?
Right.
And so it's really just being aware of them, getting what you need out of them, forgiving yourself for them, and taking what you learn forward. Because when you think about it, when you do something really well when you first start out, I was trying to think of it, that when you do something, you're a natural at it, right? There's some learning involved, but there's not a lot of learning involved, right? But when you're doing something for the first time and you're like, okay, well, my uncle taught me how to play checkers, right? And so, I made some mistakes, but when I made a mistake, he was like, oh, no, you can't do that because X, Y, and Z. It's like, oh, okay. That made me a better checker player quicker, right? Because I made the mistakes. And I know for me, when I make a mistake and I can get it correct, it's like, aha, I got it. I can take that with me. And so, it's looking at those challenges, not necessarily as mistakes, but what can I learn from that? What can I take forward with me so that you're not bumping up against the same obstacles again? Because what happens when you only look at the faults, when you only look at what you did wrong, you don't learn the lesson. And so you need to start going through the cycle of making similar or the same mistakes over and over again. So you have to change the way that you look at your financial past. Money is a renewable resource, right? We talked about that. Money is a renewable resource, so it's okay. It feels heavy. It feels like I'm incapable. It can feel like I'm ineffective. I'm never going to get this, it can feel like it doesn't matter how much money I make. This is my reality. But if you can look past your reality by looking at your experiences, the things you've experienced yourself and others differently, then you can actually learn the lessons and take that forward. And that's when you can really start to build and sustain wealth, because that's your foundation for all your strategies and your methods and the things that work. When you can get that part right, then you can, get the right strategy. You can create a custom, one of a kind, this is how I'm going to get there. And I know I'm going to get there because I have all the tools. I've done all the things, I know what I believe in. I know what I want, and I know I'm going to get there. And you can have that motivation, and that can be life-changing, because
absolutely.
What happens sometimes is like, man, I could have been did this. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh, yeah, no. It's like, get your foundation right? Like whatever cracks might be there right now, or that the past have put in there, or whatever. Don't concentrate on those. Rather, fix them and then build from there.
Right. You have to learn how to look at it differently, and we all have them.
Yes.
especially when it's just me. It's just me, but it's not just you. I promise, it's not just you. It's not just you. So don't feel alone. Definitely don't feel alone, because these are challenges that at some point we all face. We may have, like you say, different cracks and crevices or different things that we need to deal with. But we all pick up beliefs. That's what make us who we are. The way we feel about things, the way we experience life, and all those things, the baggage that comes along with that. So you just have to figure out how to carry the baggage.
Right, exactly. Let's just let people know, if they need help learning how to carry the baggage and shift those mindsets, Felecia is available as a financial coach. Felecia, why don't you tell people how they can get in touch with you?
Thank you so much. You can definitely find me on Facebook, Felecia McCants. I have my Business Success Habits Coaching and Consulting's page. We do have a private Facebook group. We're going to be doing lots of trainings in there, have some exciting things coming up. So, just reach out, and I'll put all that in the comments for you guys.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, guys. Thank you so much, Felecia, for joining us. This has always been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We'll have to do this again in another couple of months to check in and see what's going on with your trainings on your Facebook page.
I'm with it.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Felecia. And I just want to remind you all that everybody has a story to tell. So what's yours?